of Oasis for such a long time. So yes, as Peter said, I joined the board. The Chernales family, who I think most of you know, has done a great job over the past 20 years of expanding the network of people involved with Oasis, and that's how I got involved. I've been in fundraising since college, so the last 28 years or so, and many years ago, around 2000, I got involved with Oasis's Dinner Dance, which is the primary fundraiser for the organization, and joined the board in 2004, and we've had a series of executive directors, including Sister Gloria. When she was ready to retire, I actually got demoted from board president to executive director, so I've been there since February, so it's been almost 6 months, and it's been a wild ride. I was prepared to come and just tell you about some new initiatives, but I think there are a few people in the room who aren't familiar with Oasis, so I'll give you the 30-second overview. Oasis was started basically 20 years ago, almost 19. This will be our 20th dinner dance next year, as a soup kitchen, just to serve women and children. There was no place in Patterson for women with children to go for a meal. Women could go, but nowhere where children were welcome. So Ann Wagner from Wyckoff and Chris Bright from Essex Fells started Oasis in a church basement, just feeding women, and within a couple of months they realized, if we don't start helping these women in a real and substantial way, we're going to be feeding them, their children, and their children's children. So out of that was born what Oasis is today, which is a full-service academic program for women living in need in Patterson. So we have a full GED program where women who've had to drop out of high school because either they're pregnant or they weren't supported in their family environment can get their GED, no charge. We pay for the testing. They can take as long as they want. So it's a very different environment than going to a government-run program. A program that's run by the Patterson School District exists, but you have to move through at a certain pace. At Oasis, we know the challenges in these women's lives are so great that you may have to drop out because you're a victim of domestic violence. You may need to go into a shelter. You may come and go, and it may take you 4 or 5 years to get that GED. But as long as you're coming, you're showing up, you're working, you're trying to improve your life, you stick with us. We're going to stick with you. We have an ESL program, 4 levels of ESL, because the first challenge that a lot of these families face is not speaking English, not being able to help their children with homework, communicate with teachers, doctors, etc. We have a workforce readiness program, which takes women and moves them through an 8-week program so that they're ready to go out into the workforce. So it's what you would imagine, interviewing skills, resume writing, but also for these women who've never held a job, learning how to show up on time and deal with different situations. It's really a population that doesn't grow up the way we grew up, getting a job when you're in high school, and it's their first job experience. And we have a computer class, and then we have a number of certificate programs so that women really have a leg up when they go out into the workforce. So we have a bank teller certificate program, retail management, and a serve safe so that they can work in a kitchen environment. But the real supportive environment that Oasis provides is that while the women are in class, if they're coming to us for class, they get childcare for their preschool-age children while they're in the building, clothing, diapers. We have a social worker that does an assessment on every single one of them. So if there's an addiction issue, homeless problems, domestic violence, we either help them in-house with that or we refer them out. Our soup kitchen provides 69,000 meals a year for women and children, breakfast and lunch, and the dining room is full every day with healthy hot meals. We have an after-school program for children of working poor families that's filled to capacity. We're already overbooked for September. It's a vibrant program that we're trying to supplement, and that's what I'm really going to tell you about later. And those kids get a hot meal, homework help, and a number of support services provided for them. And what's happening this summer is, I think a lot of you know, we have this really cool summer camp called Carl's Kids Camp, and it's again for children of the working poor who would be on the streets or alone in a hot, crowded apartment if it weren't for the Oasis camp. The Wyckoff YMCA takes our kids 3 days a week, so they're not in our soup kitchen, in our dining room, sitting there, doing activities. They're at the Wyckoff Y. They're learning how to swim. They're in that beautiful spring lake. They're on the beach. They're in the grass. These are kids who can't go to a park. There is no safe place to play outside in Patterson. Literally, they play in the streets if they're outside.
how old are the kids?
How old?
The range.
They're 6 to 12, basically.
Oh, 6 to 12.
6 to 12, yeah, for the summer camp and the after-school program. And then this year, because the Wyckoff Y has been such a great model, Mary Help of Christians took our kids for 5 days, 5 Mondays in a row as well. So they really only spend 1 day a week in Patterson with us. Thursdays, they're there today. Nutty as all get out when they're there, but it's a lot of fun. So that's kind of the gist of our programs. What one other one that we started 4 years ago was, for many, many years we had this great after-school program, and then we were saying to the boys and girls, but especially to the girls, all right, you're 13 now, sayonara, we can't help you anymore until you're 19 and you've dropped out of high school and had 2 kids and you need to get your GED, then you can come back to us, right? So we started this program for teenage girls to come to us after school 4 days a week. We are providing them with one-on-one mentoring this year. They have 8 pods that they move through the course of the year. So nutrition, personal finance, planning your future, being physically active. This year, it took a few years to grow it. This year, we had 36 girls enrolled. 3 of our graduating seniors are going to college in September on full scholarships. Full scholarships. I know these girls. There are 3 girls who were not having a conversation around their dinner table about going to college. First generation, all 3 of them, first generation Americans. No chance that those parents were going to encourage their girls to go to college. It was not something that they thought was a reality, right? So because of Oasis and because of the work of a lot of volunteers, actually, these girls are going off. One of them, the girl Jennifer Lindo, who spoke at our graduation, and I left some newsletters on the table over here. She's featured on the front page. Out of her high school, she is the only graduating senior going to college.
What?
The only graduating.
Is that the girl who spoke at the gala?
No, that is wrong.
Yes, Jennifer, who spoke at the gala. Yes. So what I wanted to do today, because I know a lot of you know Oasis really well and you support Oasis, is talk about some things that we're planning for next year to supplement the educational environment that these children exist in, because it's fairly dire. In Patterson, the poverty rate is 27%. That's twice the national average. Of the 4th graders last year who took standardized tests, 43% of them passed language arts, 53% passed math. So these kids, even if they get pushed through and they graduate high school, their chances of competing against our children for college applications, for jobs, for just surviving is very, very slim. Over the last, I'm going to try and get this right because I didn't pull out my notes, I'm trying to be good. Over the last 3 years, I'm going to pull it out.
It's an open book test, Jennifer.
Yeah, I know. I transpose
You can
numbers.
say anything we don't know.
It must be like some dyslexic
We'll believe whatever
thing.
you say.
I
Just
know,
make it
that's
up.
true, right? Over the last 3 years, of all the high school kids who took the SATs, only 4% of them reached college readiness benchmarks as purported by the College Board. So the Patterson schools, there's a lot of really dedicated teachers down there that we know. There's a lot of really dedicated administration. They're horribly underfunded, and Mary, you probably are familiar with this language more than I, but the last 4 years they've been underfunded by $170 million. There's a school in Patterson, not that far from us, School 28. They just came out 3 or 4 weeks ago and said, next year our kids are only getting science half the year. Imagine if somebody said that at Lincoln School.
And you have to see the testing. It is so difficult that I actually took a first grade example to give to, of the kind of work they're doing to my PTO. And the mothers just all sat there like, are you kidding? The work has gotten, you should see 5th grade work. Our kids all have one-on-one computers. Our 5th grade have, 4th grade is getting one-on-one this year. I mean, this is really hard to compete with.
Right.
This
Absolutely.
is incredible.
Absolutely. So these kids, honestly, without some extra help, without the help of other organizations, these kids are doomed for failure, no doubt. So what we're trying to do, and this became terrifically apparent to me within the first, I was on the board, right? Like a lot of you sit on other boards, and I thought Oasis is doing a bang-up great job. I'm board president, this is awesome. And I got down there, and my first day in the after-school program, I'm like, what are we doing with these kids? I sat with a 5th-year-old boy who did not know how to read, third graders who are adding 2 + 3 on their fingers. I mean, if we don't help them, who's going to help them? They have parents who barely speak English, if they speak English at all, who are working 2 and 3 jobs just to make ends meet. They can't be invested in their kids' education necessarily.
They don't have it.
They don't have it. Exactly.
So how are they going to?
The distance is getting further and further.
Right. So there's 3 things that we're looking at doing over the next year, and we're looking at doing all 3 of them with no budget, which means a lot of creativity is going on in the minds of the Oasis staff and board and volunteers. The first one is we went and we visited a lot of other after-school programs in the Patterson community, because we're not going to do what the after-school programs at the Y are doing, right? But we can do something. We have to do something. So we went and visited some programs, and there are really simple ways that we can integrate some STEM programming and some arts program into our after-school. So we found a graduate student who's working this summer on putting together a once-a-week STEM program that we can have volunteers come in and teach and move our kids through. We have 85 kids, so we'll move them through 1st and 2nd grade, 3rd and 4th grade, 5th and 6th grade. We've applied for some grants. STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math. And now the new term is STEMA, or STEAM, because we're integrating arts into it too, right? So we have a graduate student working on that. It will take a lot of volunteers who, we'll have all the materials ready for them, but people who can come in and lead a program, because our after-school program is really, our after-school tutors are local high school kids for the most part, or college kids, so they're not going to be adept at doing that, but we know that we're confident that we can bring in people to do it. We're working at bringing in some real tutors into the after-school program. We also have started a Saturday arts program at Oasis. So, again, we have this little bit of funding that we get to do a Patterson youth photography program. Again, when I was on the board, I was like, what the heck are we doing with this youth photography program? Like, what does it have to do with our mission? I got down there and I'm like, man, these kids are picking up a camera. They're going out to these old mills, and they're going out on the streets of Patterson, and they're taking photographs of stuff that's really ugly or scary, and they're learning how to make beauty out of it and how to edit on the computers, and it's 100% volunteer run. We have some actual professional photographers who come from Manhattan to teach these kids on Saturday mornings.
Wow.
Yeah, it's an incredible program, and these kids from 6 years old to 15 years old, they're teaching a lesson on composition, and they are eating it up. They are so hungry for knowledge and new experiences. So I don't know, some of you know Jim Walsh. You know Jim Walsh.
Sure.
Jim Walsh, if you don't know, is a staff member at Oasis. He's been there since the beginning of time. He was actually, and I'm not speaking out of school because he would tell you this himself, he was a heroin addict. He was homeless, got help through Eva's Village, came to Oasis as a volunteer after he got sober, went back and got his master's in social work. So he is the heart and soul of Oasis and will do anything for our women and children. But he's also kind of that boots on the ground. So, just yesterday a woman came in, and clear as day, she's hooked on something, right? She's out of her mind. And he can talk to her like I can't talk to her, because he talks the talk and walks the walk. And, so Mary, where have you been this week? We haven't seen you. What are you up to? She's not going to talk to me about it, but she'll talk to him about it. So he came up with this grand scheme of having a full, just like we have the Wyckoff Y has Saturday programs, or the Ramsey School, right, community school. Let's have a full complement of programs on Saturday mornings for kids in the community to, are you giving me a high sign? Okay, I'm getting it. For kids in the community to come for free on Saturday mornings. So this year we've got a girl from Wyckoff who's teaching ballet, a graduate student from Montclair State who's teaching hip hop. We have the photography program. We have 2 artists who are coming in, and in our dining room we have 35 kids signed up already to do art lessons. And just earlier this week, we got a math tutor and a reading tutor to come in, and we've got 30 kids signed up since Monday from our after school. The parents are desperate to get extra help for their kids. So the last thing, I'll do this in a minute and less. I told you how we started the Teen Girls program, and we've had Brainstorm, SAT tutoring, they're up in Franklin Lakes. They come in on Saturday mornings and do SAT tutoring. We're really trying to do some good work with keeping these girls on track through their high school years and supporting them while they're in college too, because they go to college and they're like, where the heck am I? The one girl said the hardest thing to get used to is the trees.
Aww.
Yeah. So over the course of the past few months, the boys are saying, well, what happens to me when I turn 13? Where am I going to go?
Right. So you have to develop a program for them.
So again, we got a guy he's actually getting his master's at Montclair State. He was a teacher, went back to get his degree in social work, who has to do 300 hours, and he's going to develop a boys teen program for us starting in September, and we'll have the exact same program for the boys as we do for the girls, where we will bring in mentors and move them through these pods, they call them, to give them some life skills, some support that they're not getting, to keep them out of the gangs, off the streets, off of drugs. It's 8 miles as the crow flies to Patterson, to Mill Street from where we sit right now, but it's like going to a third world country.
Yeah.
It truly is.
Yeah.
It truly is. These kids are coming to us and they have no chance if we don't do what we can to help them. So we're always grateful for the Rotary support. We hope that over the next year or two we'll start to bring in some new grant funds that can support these programs long term. But in the meantime, I thought it was important that the most important thing I can talk to you about is what we're trying to do to, from the ground level right now on a shoestring budget to try and give these kids a shot in life.
How are you nominally funded?
We're 96% privately funded. We technically don't get much government support because we discriminate against men. So we're not eligible for a lot of government funding.
How about the new programs you're going to have for the boys?
The boys program is definitely a possibility if there's funding out there for it. We went down and we met Kim Guadagno, the lieutenant governor, was down for Thanksgiving last year. She hooked us up with the Department of Labor. We are working on the possibility of doing some GED program for men and women, off-site. So we wouldn't compromise kind of the sanctity of the program that we have for the women and being the support. Right, exactly. But we're developing, for the first time, we're really developing some real collaborative relationships with other organizations in Patterson.
You may want to, I don't know the history as well as you do, but you may want to explain the difference between Eva's Kitchen and Oasis and why it's separate.
But
Yeah.
you know, we could actually, could we finish the meeting, just people have to go?
Sure, and
then
whoever
we can
wants to stay.
whoever is
Sure,
free
absolutely.
Can stay on, and others are free to go.
Sure.
So we'll pull, is that okay?
Yes.
We'll do the
Yeah, that's
50-50.
good.
Well,
Absolutely.
hey,
No, I
we want to hear
it's
more.
important to keep
Hold
on
on.
track.
Well, Martha,
I've been in your
The
shoes.
sign of trust for new visitors is that you get to pick the ticket.
Yeah.
Can't read that.
Pick your own.